Welcome to the REI Foundation Podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Peely.
Hi, everybody, and welcome again to the REI Foundation Podcast with Jason and Peely. Today, we welcome Chris Cieslak and Rick Doherty. Hi, Rick.
Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Chris. And that might be the 10 episodes straight without Peely butchering some of the names. So we've done it. We've made it through an intro.
Yes.
All right. So all downhill from here.
No, all uphill.
All right, good.
Because we're going to be talking about real estate with these two awesome professionals. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing well.
Perfect.
Very well. How about you guys?
Fantastic.
Yeah, doing great. So a little context, I actually haven't met in person, Rick and Chris, but Peely was actually at a mastermind with both of them about a month ago, and we just were enthralled with all the different things that you guys have taken on. So
these guys are killing it, folks.
So we would love to just get a little more context about who you are and where you're at and your real estate background.
Well, you want to start or?
You can start. I'm texting.
So our background, so we kind of met, the 90-second version is, so we met at a local bank here that we both started working at same week, 5-6 years ago. Met at a local REIA group, again, just kind of unexpectedly, we walked in on opposite ends of the room. It was like, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? We're both interested in it. We were both totally green at the time. And so that was literally 5-6 years ago. And probably about a year into that, we started buying and just haven't stopped since. So we've kind of done a little bit of everything from wholesaling in the beginning to a lot of rentals. We flip a ton of places now, and we've also kind of graduated, if you want to call it, into some commercial properties as well.
That's awesome. So when you both were working at the bank, did either of you know that the other one was interested in real estate, or it took the REIA meeting?
Not until the REIA meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's amazing. It's just, that's why you should always go to your local REIA meetings, talk to people, network. You never know who you're going to meet.
And when you met at that real estate meeting, how long after that I guess two-part questions. One is, how long after that was it that you guys started working together, and what stood out that you thought that this would be a great partnership?
So I think we talked just talked about it for a while, and get each other's cubicles at the work, and he had a deal that he was wholesaling or trying to wholesale, and I was I didn't even know what wholesaling was. It was foreign to me. I was just you buy stuff. That's what real estate is. You just buy things. And he was and it was a good deal. And I was well, we should buy it. And then he was well, I'm not going to wholesale it. And then it was he was I don't think it's as great of a deal it is. And now historically we'd be we thought $200,000 on the table. We're, very green at the time. But I think that's we just started talking about potential deals that were out there. And then we finally were well, let's just do one together, and, did every mistake you could wrong and did all the work ourselves. And we're not handy.
Still not handy.
Not handy. No.
Good though for that point, but you want to know your avenue. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's a hammer involved, someone else should be swinging it. So
I was going to say our friendly mentor, Justin Williams, loves to say, don't swing hammers.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Great advice. Not good. That's great advice. Yeah.
But in regards to where you're at today, and let's just talk about that first deal. So what was it? Why did you choose the route you did? And what was the result?
The first deal was actually, I know exactly when we closed it. We closed on it it was a 3-unit in a not so very nice neighborhood in Rochester. Closed on March 1st, 2012, actually. That was the first deal we closed on. I think we went into it with the intention of, we didn't really have a good plan, actually. I think the idea was to hold it for a while, which we ended up holding it for close to a year. We ended up flipping it, long story short.
Which that year was our rehab time as well.
Yes. one apartment, one small, one bedroom apartment, which we learned a lot of things. That particular have some interesting stories. I think my fondest memory, I'm not going to share that on this, but of my favorite story of us kind of being together, it comes from that one apartment on something that Chris found.
Is it a really bad thing that you can't share on air, or can you share it with us? Because we love stories. Well, if you can't share that one, give us another story.
I'll share it. I don't care. I'll try to. I'm gonna put it in like not R rated. So there was a bird's nest in the ceiling of a bathroom, and like the tenants were complaining about this bird's nest, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna reach up in there and grab this, like whatever's in there, and just grab it and throw it out. So I'm up there grabbing, I'm pulling all this nest down into a trash bag. And the tenants are sitting there in the living room watching me doing this. And I finally grab something and it's squishy. And I'm like blindly up in the ceiling grabbing. And I'm just grabbing and I just look at him, I'm like, you need to shut the door. Like, just shut the door to the bathroom. So like we're both in this bathroom now. And I'm like, I just grab it and pull it down and throw it. And I'm like, and it was wrapped up in underwear.
He thought it was a body.
I thought it was like a body.
Oh my goodness.
It ended up being a big sex toy.
Oh no.
So like I had this thing in my hand and I won't put details of exactly what it was, but yeah, it wasn't.
Oh, I'm crying.
Welcome to rehabbing. Yep.
Welcome to real estate, everybody.
Yep.
I think that's got to be one of the top 10 stories.
That's great.
Put that
10. I think it's great. Yeah, I love it. So that'll be your intro right there. We'll let you go.
Exactly.
So only upwards from there. Where did we go from there?
Only.
We went to the worst street in our city and bought the next house.
We did, yeah. Actually, this is true.
So only upwards. Went to the
literally 30 days later. Yeah, we closed on another 3-unit literally 30 days later. And again, I think we didn't have a great plan of, okay, are we going to hold these long term? They both cash flowed well at the time, and but we ended up flipping both of those, and just kind of from there built up. It seems like we've had a portfolio between 30 and 40 rentals within that first year and a half. And that's kind of been our baseline of rentals, because somebody will come along and offer a good amount of money for a package on something. And so we end up selling them. We wholesale 1 year, the second year in, I think we wholesaled like 40 or 50 deals. And then we've past couple of years, 3 years, we got heavy into flipping. So
that's an amazing story, guys. I mean, you went from one rental, a three unit, to another rental, a 3-unit. But even though you guys said that you didn't really have a plan going in, it sounds like you guys were looking for deals that you could also cash flow on if you had to, or flip. Does that sound about right?
I think that's sort of always been our somewhat mentality, is to try to have 2 to 3 outs with something, whether it's, the wholesaling's always sort of been there. It hasn't been a priority necessarily of ours, but it's like, okay, we can wholesale it, we can rent it, or we can flip it. So having 3 different options has been sort of a goal. More lately, we've been into the residential flipping, which is a little bit more limited, but ideally we're buying something that's good enough that you could wholesale it if you didn't want to close on it yourself.
Sounds like you guys actually had a really good plan, because, I mean, and this is for anybody starting, anybody just in real estate in general, having more outs for any property you buy is key, because you never know what happens to the market. Because what if you take on a property that you can't flip? If it cash flows, then you are solid. So that sounds like you guys had a really good plan. And then let's go into your second year. You did how many deals? You did 40 or 50 wholesale deals? That's awesome, guys.
I think that might have been the third year. But into that second, third year, we did. We had a good connection with, and they were primarily to one other guy. So we had a good setup where I don't even remember how we found half of them. We don't do a whole lot of marketing, which is shame on us for not doing that. But I mean, we're always able to find deals. But yeah, wholesaling was a big piece of that year, and we added a few more rentals, I think, throughout that, and we probably flipped a handful during that year too.
So you guys just said that you don't do any marketing. What ninja tactics do you use to find your deals? If you don't mind sharing.
We do a little bit. We network. I mean, I think ultimately, in all reality, the past couple of years, foreclosures and some auctions have been where a lot of our deals come. But a lot of people bring us deals now just from being out and networking.
And if you have one guy who's basically buying all your deals and you're having such success with wholesaling, I mean, it proves two things. One, you don't need a huge buyers list. You just need one or two consistent buyers, which is great, I hope. And then why would you stop that trend if that was going so well?
So I challenge that. I think that's ultimately what hurt that, is that they had a connection. So Rochester's an interesting market, a lot different than anywhere else. There's a lot of out of state, a lot of out of country buyers here. So our connection had a connection in the Middle East, actually. So that their connection actually dried up, or their process dried up, which kind of dried us up just because we were limited to such few buyers, actually. So I wouldn't encourage that. I mean, it's nice to have that, but that's something that we've talked, especially after getting back from October, is like, we really need to grow our buyers list again, because we don't have that in place right now.
What is some steps you're going to do to grow the buyers list? That's it. Work in progress. That's cool.
We're starting from scratch.
Well, I have about 5,000 business cards sitting on my desk that probably should be gone through. And we don't have a CRM tool of any kind. So need to, and our bookkeeper's in another room right now. Need to have Tracy put those in a system for me.
They have that whatever, the card scanner. You could just scan them all in, get their email, and just get one blanket email. Yeah, that's great.
Right. So at least go through all that and get that put in place, and then do you have to take that?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. And then go and do some of the simpler tactics of reaching out to some realtors, connecting with them, and then they were saying too, doing the searches to get the cash buyers and the other cash buyers that we don't potentially know. And I mean, I think we both probably know way more than we would lead on to believe, but we just keep it all in our head. There's not a oh, hey, we need a cash buyer for single families. It's we'll sit there and we start looking at each other. We're like, what about John? What about Fred? What about Joe? And it's like, well, yeah, but that's not efficient use of time or energy. So,
one thing that we always talk about here is systems, and we get that from the coaching program that we're all a part of. And it's without the systems, you wouldn't be able to hire, say, an acquisitions manager or a dispositions manager to resell your properties, because they would have to search through your head for all of your buyers. So it's awesome that you guys are taking it to the next level. I mean, but the thing that I want to key in with you guys is that you guys didn't let anything stop you from starting. You didn't say, okay, I need to have these systems in place. I need to read this book. I need to do this before I even start to get my first property. It sounds like you guys took the bull by the horns and went straight forward. So where are you guys going from now? You said that you guys graduated or grew up into large multifamily and large commercial. Can we talk more about that?
Well, so I think coming back to what you sort of started there is systems. We really realized walking out of meeting with everyone in October, that we don't have good systems. We are the system right now, and we need to enforce. So we've started to work on those. We have someone who's doing our project management, but we sort of just threw him out there, and he's just been doing stuff, and he's running around the Home Depot and this and that. And
better
so
him than
that's
you.
our first thing. Yes, but even I'm looking at it, I'm his time's not as being used as efficiently as it should be either. So we're working on that, putting that fully into systemizing that. We just there were a lot of broken chains. So we're sort of been of the same point. Hey, we've been sort of bullhead, putting our head down and okay, we got to check off these 12 open projects that we're flipping right now. Let's get it down to 5 and work on the systems, and then in January 1st, really like start to rework on doing some new marketing and this and that to expand what we're growing, and sort of where we've gone with the commercial has been an advertising. We've done a little bit of mailing for that. And, I think that's our larger route to go in the back end. But you need to have the same systems you would no matter what to do that. So, and we're realizing like we had to start with a new bank with one of our larger commercial properties we just bought. And our other bank had the feature when you deposit a check, there you can see every check that you deposit. The new bank just says a number on it. So we're like, well, what rents have we collected? And we're like, we can't check that. So now we're like figure out what rents we've actually collected from the 7 tenants and what CAM charges we've back charged to and collected.
Oh, no.
So, it's like simple problems that if you had a system ahead of time, you wouldn't have that problem, but we don't have that system. So we're realizing more and more of everything we do that we were just being the system and not creating a system. So,
it's great. So, go ahead.
I was going to say to kind of help answer Peely's question. I think both of us have the idea that the bigger long-term wealth can be attained through the commercial. I mean, it's not that we're not doing any of the residential stuff right now, but we'd really like to kind of build from the ground up. Like basically what Chris was just saying is to tie in the commercial for that, where we just throw an extra 0 or 2 on the deal. It doesn't take any more work for that particular deal. In some cases, I think it'll actually be easier. But just if we can have that systemized, we both feel that that's just a longer term wealth building play, or better long-term wealth building play.
That's great. So what are you reaching right now? You're doing mailings. And so in context, what are you looking for specifically out there? What's in the wheelhouse? Because I see you guys, I guess let's first set the groundwork with your current investments, because you gave us a good run through, but I know you have a couple other investments, and now why you're specifically going after certain asset types.
I don't know if we have a set asset type to tell the truth.
Okay.
I think there's certain things we know we definitely don't want to get involved with. Like from a major, like pure retail play, like that's not necessarily something we want to be involved with in our area, unless it were to come across and be on like a hugely massive trade route, where you had huge daily car counts. What else don't we want? We don't ever want another car wash. We have a car wash. Don't advise buying another car wash. Can tell everyone that. Don't want to develop from scratch again. We've developed from scratch on a self-storage facility. And it's at the point, I got to put money in that account. It's at the point where, it's at a point where we're not losing money per se, but all we're doing is sort of covering expenses, which for the first 2 years, it just lost money because we were developing it. Mm-hmm. I don't think we realized how long of a period of development really takes. So it's like we thought it'd be year and a half, and we're now sort of in the second year of owning the structure, and then like the first full year of operations. Yeah. And we're at another point where we're another 12 months, we'll be in really good shape and probably be able to actually refinance it or sell it. But we didn't account for it to be a 3-year thing. So, it's probably no different than any rehab on a residential side where, it's going to take 2 weeks. It takes 5. Same sort of scenario.
Yeah,
so
scale up a little bit. You guys are awesome. I mean,
it's fun. Yeah, I guess.
Go ahead.
Well, in terms of, let's say, just the ground up development, what's something you would set in place next time? So you're not going to do it again, but just on another project, just so you can have a better time frame associated with it.
I think there's that. I don't know if it's not that we wouldn't ever do it. I think it's the timing of when to do it. One other piece to that, that 3-year period is we've got a good chunk of our own money in the project that's just tied up into it. And I think that's something that we underestimated, that time. So it's money that's in a project that we can't access right now. So I think we underestimated that piece of it. Yeah, development, I think, no different than any rehab project. You hear people saying, don't start flipping houses unless you have $100,000 in the bank. Like, we didn't listen to that at all. Really understand the value in that, though. You can't be underfunded on a project. Put yourself in a bad spot, or potentially can. It just stunts growth too. So yeah, I think, we wouldn't shut the door to not doing a development project down the road. It's just, I think down the road we'll be in a better position financially where it's, we can account for that 3-year lockup of actual cash.
Got it.
Or structure it properly with investors that we're not going to actually bring cash in. But at the time it's just not, it's not a priority right now. Yeah. So, it's like, we'd like to, like the one we just bought, the bigger office building we just bought. It's, we closed
September 25th. And we had $25,000 in the account, and now there's $69,000. So it's like, over that time, there's $50,000 or $45,000 of cash that's accumulated, and we're paying down debt and all expenses on a monthly basis. So it's like, sort of like, wow, that's a lot of money, sort of. And we collectively put really like 5 or 10 hours of management and we've taken a management fee on the property. So
great.
So Jason, what we're kind of focused on, what we are looking for is something that's maybe mismanaged, needs a little bit of work. It's just, there's add-on value to it, but something that's actually up and running so we can capitalize on some type of cash coming in from day one.
That's great. Yeah. And also, I'm sure debt structure is a lot easier too, right? If you walk in the door and it's somewhat performing. So that's amazing. Let's talk about the office. So what stood out about that one to buy it?
It was too good to be true. Like, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah. We still scratch our heads like, what? Because the guy was literally, he was offered hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. And we put the time in, so I guess we can talk more of it. So it's a 20,000 square foot medical building. Literally came from our first batch of commercial mailers that literally was no different than what we target for houses. Just said, we're interested in buying your building. And that was it. So that was literally a year ago. The last week, it was about a year ago that we got the first conversation with the guy, and we met with him, 4 or 5 times. And he liked us. He just didn't realize the value of his building. And
didn't want it. Like he was mentally, it was no different than any of the real estate, that people are looking to have to flip or to wholesale. Like, he was mentally sold the property and checked out of running the property.
Yeah.
And, no matter what, no one was going to convince him that this was a good property to own. And he just wanted to be done with it and walk away with his money. And, from that standpoint, we were the first people and the last people he wanted to talk to. So
that's great.
Nice. Great timing.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the building itself, you went in there, it was just too good to be true. When you did this mailing, were you just lucky enough that it was his name on it and you were able to mail right to him, or you just mailed to an LLCs, or? His
name was, we just blanketed our whole county. It wasn't a targeted mailing. It was just, it was a commercial building in the county that we live in, and we were just testing something new. And Chris underwrote at the bank, and so once we got all the leases in, he's like, I've gone through this like 100 times. He's like, I don't know what I'm missing. He's like, this. So we bought the building for 1.9. He's like, it's worth like 2.8 as it sits, like based on the current rents, of an 8.5 cap. Like, it's not. He's like, what am I missing? He hands it to me. I'm like, I'm not the numbers guy like him, but going through it, I'm like, yeah, it just, that's what we say. It's like too good to be true. Like,
so, and then as well though, like, so the owner was very happy to like sell it. And so he works as a periodontal surgeon for one of the dental practices within the building. And he sold his practice like 5 or 6 years ago to a private equity company that owns, I think they own like 160 practices or something, dental practices. So it's a very strong tenant, and they occupied just over a quarter of the building. And their lease was up, or actually, was their lease up?
It was coming up.
Option. They had an option that they hadn't renewed, and we're like, well, we'd really like you to get the 5-year renewal on that. And he actually threatened to quit, like, the company to get the renewal signed. Like, he was to sell the property, so which it was pretty cool to see that. And I was like, and he sent the voicemails, and like he was angry at these people that they weren't going to renew the lease. So, but yeah, I think, and that's the biggest thing with the larger commercial stuff is there is a lot of homework. And there were 6 leases in place of a 7-unit building, and each lease is 20 to 30 pages, and you have to read every page because there could be a little carve out in there that could very adversely affect you, and they could, as a tenant, they could back out for certain reasons, or there could be monetary reasons that you might have to pay them in the future that, if you're not cognizant of that, reading all your leases, that could really affect you. In their first year of renewal, they might have $100,000 tenant improvement that you might have to have. And, real estate's sort of a steady Eddie thing. Like, if you had to pay $100,000 out of pocket for that building, that could very adversely affect you if you're not able to plan on that. So I think anyone looking at commercials should be very willing to read and don't trust like anyone else to do it. Is my standpoint at this point. Lawyers can make sure you're in a good legal position, but they're not going to be a financial planner for you in that perspective. Whereas a residential building, like residential lease is a residential lease, like they're usually a year, and they're not going to have any of those little things in there that might affect you that way. So at least I've never seen a residential lease where you're going to have to do tenant improvements after a year or stuff. So
that was all great advice. Yeah. That was some awesome advice. So if I'm a new, I've been flipping for a while. I've been wholesaling for a while, but I'm new to the multifamily aspect. As a new multifamily investor, what would you tell me?
It's a multifamily investor.
Or commercial.
Yeah.
Multifamily, large multifamily or commercial.
Moving away from single tenant or just single family.
How did you guys start? What was the first thing you did?
In commercial, for anything outside of, we started really with the car wash. I mean, the car wash was technically a commercial thing. Yeah.
We both have backgrounds in commercial lending and banking. So I've treated banking people as like a very friendly relationship. And I feel like a lot of people are sort of hostile or scared of that relationship. And I think it should be much more of a like give take, like, hey, let's go have lunch and just talk about this deal. And then, and talk to them ahead of time. Like this week I've met with 2 bankers just to meet them. So in case we ever need money, I can call them up and I already know them. It's a warm relationship. Versus trying to chase the money on the back end for that sort of stuff. I think that's usually the first thing, because then they're going to look at the deal too. And if you send a deal to 3 bankers and they all look at it and want to propose terms on it, then there's usually a good deal. Like, I mean, if you're betting 100 out of 3, like tends to be a good deal, unless the market's just that hot that everyone wants to give out money. But and then if they start to give it more and more aggressive terms on it, then it's an even better deal. And if the loan to values, when we just sent a deal out to 3 people, a smaller commercial building, and we got a 15-year term, 15-year amort, a 15-year term, 20-year amort, and a 15-year term, 25-year amort on it. So it's like sent it to 3 people, and all 3 people came back, and some of it, I mean, it's 10-year money on a 25-year amort at 5%, at 80% loan to value. So for commercial, so that's a pretty good, and there's no prepayment. And I mean, it ended up, it's getting close, like that got close to where residential lending is at. So
that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I would say it's great because you want to use your team to your advantage, right? So you're going to underwrite it, but if you put it out to the powers that be, your lenders, if you have a property manager and have other people do the homework with you too, if the stars align, then it's all in your power right there. And hopefully, if they're the right lender and the right property management company for you, they're the ones who are going to catch something for you and say, no, wait, this is not right. There's something off here, and come back to you with more questions. So yeah, that's awesome.
And your advice regarding bankers, you say the word banker to many real estate investors, actually to most of the population of the earth. And people usually cringe because they think money, they think bankers, they think paperwork. But just what you said, like as we network with each other as real estate investors, we should also be networking with bankers because they have the money and we want the money.
Yeah.
And the good thing with commercial is it's actually a lot. I mean, you can negotiate a lot better. I mean, there's room for negotiation in rate, like the medical building. Chris put it in front of 5 banks, took bits and pieces from everybody's commitment and kind of created our own loan and fished that out after everybody else came back with their best and somebody bit on all the best terms and pieces of the loan. And it's a lot different on the residential side where there's a lot of regulation with that. So it's actually easier to get financing on the commercial stuff.
And they took us out to a baseball game and brought us beer and food before we even signed any loan docs.
There you go.
So that's why you went with them. Baseball game and beer.
Yeah.
So where are you guys going to be in 5 years? What's the goal? What's the aim?
That's part of our process here of goal setting. So we honestly haven't thought we in our past we think out, like we'll sit down. We sit down once a year. Like, hey, is this still something we want to do? All right, what do we want to do for the year? So the last year was the most detailed I think we got of looking out 5 years. But I think that especially after this past meeting and joining the group, I think actually changed for both of us a lot of the bigger picture thinking. And so I think we're both going to sit down at some point, I think, it's something we'd like to sit down and do again. So
I think that's a broad question. And I think it's also like, not just where you want to be, but it's what do you want to be doing on a day-to-day task? And it's like, we still currently run around and are wearing all the hats. And I think it's more of coming back and being in more of a managerial role versus a jack of all trades role.
Doing everything.
That we both are on the same page of that at this point. I'm speaking for him. We haven't talked about that, but I know he's of the same, at least I hope he's the same mindset right now. So, and coming to that and how can we do that to get to whatever we do think we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
it sounds like you guys kind of figured out a goal there to get yourself more into managerial.
I feel like there's been a handful of them that have popped out of this. This is good.
We'll have to watch this again. But so like our January meeting, we sat down and we said, we don't want to buy anything that doesn't make money, unless it's a flip. So like that sort of crossed out that development. That was the beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. We don't want to buy anything to hold that's not worth at least $500,000. Ideally, I think we threw out the number of we wanted to buy $10 million worth of properties this year, which we're not quite there, but like we're not too far super far from there. And then
those are the big keys.
Yeah, it was, and then it was like just keep flipping and increase our wholesaling, which we haven't done as well as we should have. So just because we've been doing other stuff, and didn't have systems, probably would have put systems on there as the number one goal at this point. But
Nice.
So if you're a brand new investor who maybe possibly this is the first podcast they've listened to, what is an actual step you can give someone to take today to get going on their journey?
I think Peely mentioned the first is getting in front of other like-minded people. So whatever REIA group is there, I think that's the first step. And then reaching out to people like us. I think that's and and inviting somebody out for coffee. The amount of times that we get calls now of people wanting to get involved just because they know who we are. Reach out to people that are doing something that you want to do and sit down and buy them a cup of coffee and pick their brain.
It's awesome.
Nice.
It's great.
Well, I also want to add to this, and I think this is what made me think, wow, these guys sound like Jason's best friends. It's sort of the shiny object syndrome. At one point, Jason wanted to buy into a donut shop. Yeah, it was an awesome proposal. They had awesome donuts, but we were just.
It was a great move. I know it too because someone just opened one up here, a franchise, and I knew it, and I knew it. He knew it, but it's a shiny I saw the
object.
trends, but I just didn't have the time. But I'll kick myself over that one.
But the thing is, it sounds like what you guys do is you guys grab the bull by the horns and you guys go and do it. And that sounds like the biggest value that I'm getting out of this podcast right now is that you guys are doers. And that's what a lot of investors are lacking in, is the ability to get over whatever mindset, whatever blockage they have, and just do. So that's what I think you're giving to our listeners right now.
It could be your biggest attribute and biggest detriment. Yeah.
Sure.
So we have one other shiny object. We just bought an oil well about 2 months ago. So yeah, that's your donut shop.
There you go.
That's awesome.
What's the play there?
That it pumps oil out.
This.
There you go. There you go.
You know what, Jason? I'll let you open up your donut shop in that case.
Well, someone already did the data, so got it. But there's other places.
Well, before we leave you guys, we have a few other questions we'd like to ask you. What are some words that you live by? The quotes.
Quotes. Oh man, I should have invited my wife. So
that's a good quote.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm good.
I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily have anything I specifically live by as a quote.
You know what? I mean, what we just talked about is just go out and do something. Even if it cause some type of havoc, and figure it out. Just figure it out.
Nice.
We all have that.
So then I went to Catholic school, and it was sort of we are on everything. It was AMDG, which was Latin, and I'm absolutely horrible at Latin, and I failed it twice, so I'm not going to go into that. But it was basically just help your brothers out and do one to others as you would want done yourself. And I think that's sort of I think we're both very much hey, how can I help you? How can I help you? And hey, what do you, I'm bored. Can I do that instead of what I'm doing? And then, and just try to be that mentality. And it's the same thing as just talking to the newer investors and, talking to people and trying to help and get stuff done. Which can also be a detriment too, because we probably don't put ourselves in as much of a managerial role as we want to be all the time, because we start to just try to help out. And we're more than willing, both of us, to just hop in a car and just come help get something done. Which it's probably part of that shiny object syndrome. It's let's just go get it done. And it's probably should have sat in the car and just, yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a good point.
That's great, though. Get you to it, get you going, though, right? So, appreciate it. So if there's people out there that want to hear more about your story, maybe want to get on your buyers list, where's a place that they can reach you?
We're very unprepared for this.
We should have
the fact sheet.
No, carrier pigeon.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Carrier pigeon. Awesome.
Facebook will be the best because we don't have a website.
Email,
We should have a website. Could use a website maker recommendation website developer. Yeah.
So I'm gonna in the show notes. I'm gonna put
Email or phone is good.
Yes.
perfect.
Preferably Facebook email. Yeah, for me. But
I think what you just said though is great. You have all this going on. You have all these properties, and you don't have a website, and it just another reason that you hear out there. Well, I don't have a business card yet. I don't have a website, so I can't go out there. I don't have the LLC, so I can't go out there and buy real estate. Well, look what they've just done right here. So,
we didn't have business cards until we went to the October 7 FF.
Chris overnighted them the night before.
there you
That's
go.
amazing.
It's awesome.
I love it. I love
Thank
it.
you guys. It's
Thank
been great.
you so very, very much. So appreciative to you and to all of our listeners out there.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So this is the REI Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. Thank you so much to Chris Cieslak and Rick Doherty. Thank you so very much. Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.